You're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 11, the week of July 28th, 2023.
My name's Drew Koenig. With me again, Matt Spassi. Matt, hi.
Hey, guys. How's it going this week?
Good. How are you?
I'm emotionally wrecked. Watched too much television this week.
Yes.
Didn't think I'd say that, but I did.
That is what we do here.
Yeah, but it doesn't ever really feel like a lot, but I think it's because of some of the things that we are going to talk about today. It was just very...
There was a lot of TV this week. I'll admit, there was a lot of TV this week.
Yeah.
We're talking about a little more TV than we usually do, and also some shows had multiple episodes this week.
Blame it on San Diego Comic-Con.
Yes. So yeah, there is that. But aside from the TV, how was your week?
It was good. We're hitting like a very slow the end of a slow period at my job. I'm a marketing writer, so like it's kind of been okay to watch TV so much during the week because my job has been really slow, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do when like mid-August hits and our like slump ends.
Right.
But every year around July, August, we go through a bit of a slump because people are like, it's summer, we're going on vacation, we don't want to do new projects. So yeah, my week's been kind of lull in that department.
Right. Yeah.
Which is fine.
No, I'm in the same boat because like I worked in liquor, which I've mentioned before, and we're kind of like past the point of most, like the majority of summer and 4th of July, and we're not quite at like Halloween and Christmas yet. So we're just in like that kind of retail dead zone where like there's not a lot happening or looking forward to. I mean, there's always sports.
There's always
sports. Sports, said this before, but I deeply regret moving to a town with multiple professional sports teams. Like professional baseball team, professional football team, professional soccer team. Like I don't need to hear about, I don't want to know about the sports.
Meanwhile, I moved from Kansas, which has like 3 teams total in the entire state, I think, that are like big professional teams. Maybe more. I don't know sports very well. To New Jersey that has none.
Right.
So, I mean, we're close enough to Philly that we claim Philly, but we're not Philly. So.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm glad I don't have to worry about sports. Like occasionally on meetings at work, the guys will be like chatting about Philly games, and I'm like, and they'll like turn to me and be like, "What about you, Mads?" I'm like, "I don't watch sports. I'm gay. I don't do sports."
Yeah. No, people ask me all the time, like, my thoughts on, like, the Reds, or if I'm a fan of the Cincinnati Reds. I'm like, I don't care, honestly. I just don't care. And we're also in, like, a kind of weird zone for, like, college sports, where, like, we're really close, of course, like, University of Cincinnati and Ohio State and University of Kentucky and University of Louisville, and it's like, it's too much of the sports. There's too much of the sports in, like, one contained area. For the kind of town I live in.
Too much. Yeah, there's too much.
It's not that big. Like, it's a big town. It's not a big town.
You're a medium-sized town.
Yeah, we're a solidly medium-sized town.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to deal with as much as I have to deal with.
Well, it's a good thing we do a podcast on television, not sports.
Yes. But for me, I went to Kings Island this week, which is Cincinnati's like theme park here. Just it's just a little north of Cincinnati, and I hadn't been in like 15 years, and I had a day off, so I was like, "Fuck it." And there was like a food expo thing going on, and I was like, "Okay, we'll just have a day here."
So yeah, that would be me. I would be there for the food, not necessarily the other parts of the place.
Right. Yes. Well, like Kings Island used to be owned by Paramount, and then it got owned by the company that owns Cedar Point in northern Ohio. And I hadn't been in like I hadn't really been since like that takeover. So I was like, I have no idea what this is going to look like, and it wasn't as great. Leave it to Paramount to continue to ruin the things that I love. To not know how to do anything with the things that I enjoy.
we
Thank you,
will.
Paramount.
The number of things I've realized that are on Paramount, I'm like, oh, that's a Paramount thing. It's a Paramount production. Okay.
Yeah, so like there used to be like a bunch of like movie themed rides, like explicitly named after movies. So like there used to be like a Top Gun ride and a Congo ride and a drop
Kind of like
zone.
Universal.
Yeah, kind of like Universal.
Okay.
And since then, it's just been like renamed to like be like Drop Tower and Congo Falls, and you're like, okay,
We know what this really is.
okay. I feel like you're not trying.
Oh man.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I remember why I don't do this more often, because I thought I was going to pass out by the end of that day, and I was like, oh, this is like made me acutely aware of how old I am now, because I was like, in my 20s, I could have done this from sun up to sundown. I would open that bitch and close it down, like.
Yeah. Was it a combination of the heat and the walking and moving around, or was it just the moving around part?
It was mainly the moving around part. It was very hot.
Yeah.
If I had not bought a souvenir bottle, I probably would have died.
Yeah.
If I wasn't just like filling up on water all day.
Television.
On the television. Let's talk about some news real quick.
Yes.
The first piece of news, and I want this to be quick because I don't want to. It bums me out, honestly. Kevin Spacey's trial wrapped up in the UK. He was not guilty. It's just there's not a lot to say about this that isn't just disappointing. Turns out we care just as little about male victims as we do about female victims.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see the people's reactions on social media to it as well. Like, they're clearly not reading up on the case itself. They're like, oh, that means he's not guilty. I'm like, no, that means he was trying to convince people that it was consensual sex. He wasn't saying the sex didn't happen, he was saying it did. And they were like, oh. And I'm like, he managed to somehow convince everyone that all of this was consensual, and it's not. But you know, it's so interesting that he's fallen so far, because like he used to be such a big thing, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I was very upset.
Yeah. That's all I really want to say about that.
That's all we need to say.
Moving on to the strike. We are now week 13 of the WGA strike and week 3, I believe, of the SAG after strike. Still no real signs of giving up quite yet.
No, but it has been great to see which bigger named actors stand on the line with those people, you know, picketing and stuff.
Right. Yeah. And there have been some minor developments on the ancillary side. George R. R. Martin has had his 5-year deal with HBO suspended for the time being, which means he still will not write The Winds of Winter. We'll still get out of this. No Winds of Winter. I don't want anyone to be disillusioned about this. We still are not going to read that book. It's still not going to happen. He's still going to find ways to distract himself from actual writing.
Yes.
Because George R. R. Martin is a true master of his craft and would rather do anything than actual writing.
Oh, you know, like everyone else in the world, they have procrastination skills.
Yes. But also, Jeopardy was supposed to have the Tournament of Champions fairly soon. Former Jeopardy winners have said that they're not going to cross the picket line to participate. So that's on hold, and they're going to recycle old Jeopardy episodes until that can be figured out. In a sentence that I thought I would never say, ridiculousness on MTV is attempting to unionize, because reality TV is not part of anything going on right now with either SAG-AFTRA or the WGA.
Right.
So that's a weird sentence that I just said. And
it continues to live up to his name of having the most ridiculous things happen.
Yes. And
not in a bad way. Like, that's not a bad ridiculous. It's just a, oh my God, I never thought I'd see that.
What is happening?
Ridiculous.
Yes. And finally, General Hospital, the ABC, I believe, soap, has been using scab writers or temporary writers, I think they would prefer to call it, instead of WGA union members, which is a nightmare. I think I read that the writers of General Hospital have had 10 years worth of plot storyboarded out pretty much, and the temporary writers have burned through it in a summer.
Jesus Christ. Here's the thing.
They wasted 10 years of material.
So I was not aware of this development until I got on Twitter this morning, and I saw that Lisa and Walter from Abbott Elementary and a lot of other things, but she had been tagged by someone because of a conversation someone was having with another actor about this writing situation. And this person was trying, this nobody on the internet was arguing with these SAG-AFTRA actors and writers that, well, soap operas can do whatever they want because they're not part of this whole thing, and this is not against the strike, and I don't know what, you can't call them scabs. And I'm like, this is the wildest take I've ever seen in my life. And then they were like, and then, Lisa was very civil and professional, like she always is, and she literally was just telling them the facts of that these are scabs and it is against the strike to be doing what they're doing. Right. And this person then was like blasting Lisa, saying that she was attacking them. This is Twitter has become, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, sorry, X. This is what X has become.
Yeah.
It's not Twitter anymore. It's X.
That's a whole other thing to get into.
But yeah, I was just like, that's the wildest take I've ever seen. My goodness.
Yeah. And the last real thing here is that the studios and the AMPTP are considering canceling their first look deals with a lot of creators, which potentially makes Netflix burn Shonda Rhimes and Ryan Murphy, and Amazon Prime burn I forget his name, Haunting of Hill House guy.
Oh, okay.
I would know this any other day of the week. Like literally any other time that it's not now.
Oh my god.
But
oh my
doesn't
gosh.
matter. But burning all those people is deeply hysterically funny.
I mean, to be fair, I don't give two craps about what happens to Ryan Murphy because I haven't liked that man for a very long time. Shonda Rhimes, I'm kind of like about, but the other guy, I'm like, oh, that sucks.
Right.
He's really
but these
good.
are
he's really, really good.
More the point of these are very powerful people. Like, yeah, these are powerful people in their fields.
They control a good 75% of television. Yeah. So, if you throw in Dick Wolf there, then you're really fucked.
Yeah. So, like, the possibility of them the studios or AMPTP pissing them off is just insanely funny to me. It's a real fuck around and find out situation that I cannot wait for, honestly.
The other news I wanted to talk about was the information about how certain A24 films have been able to get the green light. And it's because they've agreed to everything that the strike, everything that SAG-AFTRA is asking for in the strike. And I'm like, A24, this very small company that's worth like maybe $3 million total, maybe 5, I could be wrong. But like compared to the billion-dollar companies that they're striking against, said, yes, we can pay our writers and we can pay our actors and we can do all this. And I'm like, maybe there's something with this.
Right.
But I was like, I mean, that makes sense. That's why they were able to continue filming. But I was just like, oh, you mean these little tiny guys can follow what's asked of in the strike? That's interesting.
So, yeah. So that's the update on the strike right now. No real substantive changes yet. So a long way to go.
This episode is brought to you by Zencastr. As some of you all know, I've been podcasting for the better part of a decade now, and I have done a number of podcasting options, hosting, and software, and Zencastr is by far the easiest that I have used in that time. It has never been easier to record a podcast than it is with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record stereo quality, sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Zencastr has multi-layered backups that ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality. Even if the connection is unstable, I cannot count the number of times that I've lost podcast episodes or otherwise perfectly good quality just because of a dumb technical snafu. You don't have to worry about that with Zencastr. It is all in one. Ever thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools, you need a lot of different services? Podcasting can be a lot of money. I know this all too well. With Zencastr and its all-in-one platform, you can create your podcasts all in one piece and distribute to Spotify, Apple, and what other podcatching devices you want your listeners to find you on. To sign up, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code DHARMA, DHARMA, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all of my podcasts and content need. It's time to share your story.
So, The GOAT is a recurring segment we do on this podcast where myself and Mads will pick a best TV character or episode and pit them against each other on a poll on Twitter and TikTok. So, last week, I nominated Boy Crowder from Justified, and Mads nominated Patrick Brewer from Schitt's Creek. I'm not going to say that I lost, even though I could definitely say that I lost. But
You cannot lie. You
I
have
cannot
to tell them the
lie,
truth.
but I definitely lost. Like, yeah. It's,
It was an unfair pairing. It was an unfair pairing.
Some losses are very humbling. I feel that I brought this upon myself. Last week I asked to lose. Like I've said this past couple of weeks. I wish I could just lose, and then I lost. I lost in spectacular fashion. Like Icarus flying too close to the sun.
You had a good run.
Boy, I fell. I don't want to say the exact number. But let's just say it was dramatic.
Yeah.
By far the worst loss that I've seen doing the GOAT so far.
Let's just say I checked it midday Thursday. Yeah, Thursday was the last time I checked it on Twitter. And it was like 49 votes to none against your character.
Yep. At the beginning, when I was only, 5, 10 in the hole, I was like, I can come back from this. Then it became clear that I was not going to be able to come back from this. And I was like, you know what? Let's just take the L on this one. It was a well-fought victory. A very well-fought victory.
Well, listen.
You win some, you lose some.
Maybe I'm not saying I'm going to keep my win streak because I probably won't, because my entire life has been a series of never winning anything. So so this is a shock to me that I win something.
Yep. Hoping to rally this week. So, since you won last week, Mads, you get to go first.
All right. So today, when I was watching Good Omens, there was this tiny little moment where David Tennant's Crawley puts on a red fez hat. And it made me think of Matt Smith's doctor because he wore that hat on occasion. And made me then think of my absolute favorite episode of Doctor Who, probably of all time, even though Matt Smith is one of my least favorite doctors, which is Vincent and the Doctor.
Oh, hang on. I will stop you real quick.
Okay.
We have actually done that one before.
Oh, you have?
We have actually done that one. That was one we did very early on, but we have done it before.
Okay. All right, I'll pick a different one then.
Okay.
I'll pick a different thing then.
Yes, that was that was round 3. What We Did in the Shadows, season 2, episode 6, On the Run, versus Doctor Who, season 5, episode 10. Which won that round?
Oh, nice. Hold on, I'm looking up the. You're gonna have to cut some stuff out. Okay, so all right, my backup episode, because I have another episode on deck. I had to look up season and number. Anyway,
Okay.
all right, so since we've been watching a lot of Star Trek, I've been rewatching Next Generation for like the fifth or sixth time.
Nice.
Like, I love that show. It's my favorite Star Trek entity. And my favorite episode of all time, I've probably watched it a good couple dozen times, is season 2, episode 9, The Measure of a Man. In this episode, Data is on trial. They're trying to determine if he is more android or if he can be considered a man. And I just love it because it kind of delves into, can technology be human like in nature? And it really brings out Data's personality, I think, in more full force, but also shows that Picard has this. I mean, he's always gentle and he's always kind, but like he has this very compassionate side, and he, even when his friend is on trial, he can still see reason from both sides. And yeah, so that's one of my favorite episodes. Data is one of my favorite characters, so I really like that episode because it really highlights Data.
Nice. I'm glad that someone is nominating Star Trek that isn't me. I've nominated two episodes and one character from DS9, and our previous guest Samantha Coley nominated the Picard series finale. So glad to see Star Trek continuing to dominate in this in these goats.
It's a good show.
It's a good show.
It's a good franchise.
I mean, my Star Trek bona fides are well, so no one needs to convince me. But on a similar note to that, not exactly a similar vein, we're talking a lot about DC shows. We have a couple of DC animated shows to talk about this week. So I was thinking a lot about other DC shows, and I've on the Lost Cause Pod, I nominated an episode of Legends of Tomorrow, which I'm on record as being a big evangelizer for, that I covered for a lot of seasons on Telltale TV, which I'm still not convinced that Sara would not have assassinated me to review that show, but that's neither here nor there. But I was thinking more about that, and we're just coming out of Pride. I didn't really do a whole lot of Pride picks, a whole lot of LGBT related picks. So I was thinking about Sara Lance, who I love dearly, who kind of came onto the scene on Arrow after being resurrected a couple times and being played by a whole other person than Katie Lotz, who was very good in the role, who was incredibly good in the role, and learns to breathe within it very, very well. And comes on the scene with this very casual representation of bisexuality with her romance with Nissa Al Ghul, and then transforming into going on to Legends of Tomorrow and becoming captain, getting married, having a kid, while also being the prototypical like badass assassin who will rock your shit repeatedly and painfully. And she is just I find her just such an amazing character. I love her so much. And just her progression on Legends of Tomorrow, and the moment where it's like, oh yes, Sara should absolutely be the captain, and her like growing relationship with like Ava. It's all just very good, very, very good. I love Tomorrow so much, and just like the kind of confidence that like borders on swagger that Katie Lotz brings into it for Sara. It's just so good. I love it. So that's my pick. Sara Lance on Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow.
Awesome. Yes. Sara is a good character. I mean, I've seen very little of Legends of Tomorrow, but I've seen enough of Arrow to know who she is, and she's pretty badass.
Yes. So those are our picks for this week. The polls for these will be up Twitter and TikTok. Will be live for 2 days for you all to vote.
You are probably going to dominate this week.
Possibly. There's one thing I've learned is that sometimes you need to weaponize a fandom.
Yep. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. I totally didn't do that.
I've never done that before. I've certainly never done that before. Be sure to like and share on all platforms, and as always, check out our pages on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube for clips of this podcast that I'll be uploading throughout the week. And as always, email us downtvpodcast@gmail.com with any short recommendations or go picks that you have going forward, especially as we get into a kind of chaotic part of our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, let's move on into the main show. So, for our first show this week, we are going to be previewing Good Omens Season 2, which just dropped Amazon Prime Video. I believe it is 6 episodes?
It's 6 episodes.
6 episodes. I've watched 2 and change episodes so far.
I watched all 6 of them and regretted my choices. I mean, one point I was like, I should stop and save some for later, but then I was just like, also on the same level, I love this show so much that I was like, gotta keep going, gotta know what happens. And then I regretted my choices.
Yeah. So preview the season as a whole, if you will.
So basically, it's really comical in a way because Gabriel shows up stark naked. First episode, doesn't know who he is. And just imagining John Hamm stark naked is just hysterical just to think about. I mean, he's carrying a box, and we're not really sure why he has an empty box, but he has a box with him. And of course, Aziraphale and Crowley get dragged in because he shows up at the bookshop, and Aziraphale can't not look away when something's going on, And then there's this cute little side queer story of these 2 shopkeepers on the same street as the bookshop that one has a major crush on the other, and so Aziraphale's trying to help her fall in love with the other woman, or the other woman to fall in love with her, like to get them together basically. Mm-hmm. And it's a cute little side story that has its own chaos, as only these characters can create, I mean, to be honest. And I feel like this season really dives into who Crawley is under the surface. We see him a lot, in the first season as this demon who doesn't really side with hell or heaven. He's kind of just doing his own thing. And he has that bond with Aziraphale, but we're not really sure how deep it goes, his intentions, any of that. And that's really explored deeply this season. And so it's an emotional roller coaster. I'm just going to tell you guys that. Emotional roller coaster. And David Tennant deserves 10 million Emmys for his performance this season. Also, you will get the song Every Day stuck in your head. So just fair warning, because it plays constantly, because it's one of those like clues as to what's going on.
Right.
Anyways, but yeah. I mean, that's as unspoilery of a preview as I could do.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't want to spoil too much for those of you that haven't watched all of it like I did.
Yeah, considering it dropped today.
Today. Actually, technically it dropped last night, but I didn't watch it till today.
Right.
They dropped it like 8 or 9 o'clock last night, and I was just like, I'm sleeping.
Right.
I'm going to sleep before. But I will say, if anyone has watched Our Flag Means Death, let's just say I tweeted out Neil Gaiman, handshake, David Jenkins, heartbreaking stories about queer characters. I think something about finales too, but like I didn't want to but right. Yeah, basically if you have seen Our Flag Means Death, you can kind of get an idea of how the season is potentially going to end.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the season so far. I like the running gag, not even gag because it's very baked into the show that the angels are very stupid. They're very very stupid.
The other one is that the demons are as well.
They're both sides
They're
are
both
deeply stupid.
They're deeply stupid.
They're stupid for
and
like similar but very different reasons in that they don't know how humanity works or anything that involves them.
yeah, and demons are more stupid in like the book smart sense. Like they're just dumb. They don't want to read things. They take you at your word instead of like actually reading the bylaws or whatever, and it's just hilarious.
And the angels are just flat out stupid. Like they're just not intelligent people.
No, we get introduced to a very sweet angel this season, Muriel, who
yes.
has become my little thing that I want to stick in my pocket and protect for the rest of her life, which is forever because she's an angel. Because she's just so naive about everything. And there's a scene later in the season where Aziraphale convinces her that she's arrested him, even though she's pretending to be a cop. She's not an actual cop. And it convinces her to take him back up to heaven. And I'm just like, honey, you are so naively stupid that he can convince you. But I love her. She's adorable. It's just there was another moment where they were like asking her because she's supposed to be spying on Aziraphale because he's seen as a traitor because of what happened in the last season. And so she's supposed to be spying on him because they think she has or he has something to do with Gabriel, the situation with Gabriel. And so they ask her, okay, what did he say when he was talking to Crawley? And she goes, oh, I didn't listen. They said it was private. And I'm like, oh, sweet, sweet summer child.
Just not all the lights on the Christmas tree are blinking. Like, yeah.
But yeah, this is one of my comfort shows. I was talking about this with a friend today. So my grandmother passed away 3 years ago tomorrow. Well, the 29th for those that'll listen next week. But 3 years ago on the 29th of July, and I watched this show to like really kind of get through that. And so this season I was like, oh, good, my guys are back. And then by the end, I was just like, oh, okay.
Okay.
I don't want to give too much. We'll talk more in depth next week. But yeah, it's just prepare your hearts. That's all I'm going to tell everyone is just prepare your hearts. Neil Gaiman, trust his process because I'm sure something is in the works beyond the finale, but it is a cliffhanger and it is not the nicest of cliffhangers. So just prepare your heart and your souls.
Right. No, I did rewatch season 1 before I got back into season 2. And like after watching like American Gods and The Sandman, I'm like, okay, I can definitely see Sam Gaiman has a very particular sandbox that he likes to use. And he just uses it over and over and over again. Where like the Horseman last season, I'm like, I see you, Neil Gaiman. I see what you're doing. You like your tropes very much.
I don't hate him for it though.
No, I don't hate it. It's just like, okay, I understand. I understand. Okay.
But also just be aware that I don't know if anyone has been paying attention to the critics regarding this season, but there were a lot of people that were I'm going to assume cis male critics that were very upset at how gay this season seemed. And I'm like, do you guys not know Neil Gaiman? Like, do you guys not know his MO? Because sit down. Just sit down.
Yep. Ugh.
They want that bromance so hard. Bromance is not a real word.
So we'll check back in on this next week. Let's move on to our next show. Which is Secret Invasion, Season 1, Episode 6, entitled Home. We're checking back in on this to close out the season. You know what? The AV Club, for once, summed this up really well. what an enormous waste of everyone's time and talent.
Thank you. Okay, so I literally finished watching it. Mentioned to Karen that I had watched it, my roommate, and we love Nick Fury. Like, we love Marvel, we love Nick Fury. We've gone and seen all the big Marvel films together. And so she was like, "How was it?" And I go,
It's bad.
"Lackluster." I was like, "It's lackluster," and it was such a waste of my freaking time. I
Yeah.
said I wasted 6 hours of my life on this crap.
Yeah. Just
And that
for the like, we wasted Maria Hill for this. I don't
yeah.
like.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like too nerdish about this, but like, why did we do this? Why did we do this? What was the point for something this bad? Like,
Hashtag justice for Maria Hill.
yeah, like,
And the other thing is that Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury deserved so much more than what this show gave. Like, there's one thing to kind of like try and show a character that has been kind of broken down by the things they've experienced, like what was it? The snap? Is that what they called it? I
the
forget
blip.
what they called it. The blip. Yeah. So things like that, like I can understand them trying to explore the mental toll that takes on a person, but this was more than that. This was like Nick Fury's no longer Nick Fury. Like, he's just a guy walking around. And it's just like, this is so disappointing. And it didn't make any sense. The storyline didn't seem to have a point. The end battle that I thought was going to happen was so lackluster and so like, oh, it's over.
Right. And it looked bad. Like, it just felt like, I know there's a lot of pressure on Marvel's VFX artists anymore, but it looked bad, and like, it was stupid.
Yeah.
It was just stupid. Like, there's no other word for this. Like,
I will say Olivia Colman as a somewhat anti-hero is amazing.
Right, but she's criminally underused.
Oh, criminally underused. Completely.
Yeah.
And Emilia Clarke's character was totally like thrown out, then thrown back in, then thrown out. I'm just like, I couldn't keep track.
They did not know what to do with her.
Right.
They did not know what to do with Emilia Clarke. And now Gaia, I guess, is the most powerful being in the universe now.
Mm-hmm.
And they can never bring her back.
Nope.
They can never bring her back because she is comically overpowered.
Yeah.
Like,
also this this show created way too many plot holes for the movie universe, because like they're like trying to make us believe that Rhodey has been a Skrull for years
since Civil
and I'm just
War.
like, what? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that doesn't make sense at all.
Right. Well, like, that's been like one of my problems with Secret Invasion, is that like, it wanted to say like, oh, this person's been a Skrull the whole time. Like yeah, like Rhodey's been a Skrull for like a long time, or Martin Freeman's been a Skrull for a long time. And it's like, how long has Martin Freeman been a Skrull? Has he been a Skrull since Black Panther?
Right.
Black Panther 2? Like, how long?
The other issue I have with all the Skrull storyline in general is that wholly underutilized in the MCU as a whole. And so it's like, we don't really know who, like, if you didn't really watch Captain Marvel, you don't know who these people are.
Right.
You don't really know anything about them. And so it's like, I'm supposed to care that these people have taken over? I'm confused. So, like, if they had maybe talked about them in passing, even in other films and stuff, like, then maybe some of this would make a little more sense. But it's just, it doesn't jive with the rest of the MCU, and it's very disappointing.
Right. Yeah. It's just.
Also, like, where are we going from here? Like, where are we going from the ending?
Right.
Like, where are we going forward?
Here's my big thing. So, a huge part of this Marvel universe, and just Marvel in general, is that they made Captain America, they made a super soldier, and then they were never able to replicate it.
Right.
Like, that was the whole thing with, like, Bruce Banner turning into the Hulk. Except, oops, yeah, no, they did. Apparently, we did figure out how to make a superhuman. You just had to take DNA from blah 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 and put it in people.
Yeah, just kidding. That whole storyline about Bruce was incorrect.
Incorrect. Like, you could just do whatever now. Like,
It kind of makes me think: Are we in the what? Are we in the what we do in the Shadows universe, where everything happens and nothing makes sense?
right. This is so fucking stupid.
The problem, other thing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that they haven't stopped. Like they need to create a stopping point, because by adding more content, they're retconning original content, and it's like, this doesn't help your universe.
Right. Which I think is like, I don't want to, really, truly don't want to get into this. But like, that is what they're leading to with like Secret Wars in the future. Because like, that's what Secret Wars is. Like, that was Marvel Comics having like a bunch of like disparate timelines and going like, all right, and we're gonna kill you, we're gonna kill that timeline, we're gonna kill that timeline, and there's just gonna be one timeline left. We're just gonna break this down to one. And so like, that's what they're building to with like Secret Wars. So they're just like, right now, I think like, to them it doesn't matter. They're just gonna put like hats on top of hats because like they know they're just gonna tear this thing down.
Yeah, they're gonna destroy it. Yeah.
Like, it's like a kid building like a big stack of Legos because they know like in 5 minutes they're just gonna knock that shit over.
Yeah, so there's like there's no real structure to the stack. It's just whatever stacks.
Yeah, whatever, fine. Yeah, this is just, I don't know.
I watched the last episode last night, and then I immediately turned on the first Avengers movie to kind of wash it out of my brain.
Right.
So I was like, let's go back to really good Nick Fury and Maria Hill. I miss you.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But, okay.
We're not gonna dive
This isn't
into
even my
MCU.
main. I haven't even gotten to one of my main gripes of the show, which is that it had, and I've said this before, it has no regard for shapeshifting whatsoever. None at all. Gaia is able to trick our bad guy because it's inconceivable to him that Fury wouldn't actually be Fury. You all don't. You're just taking this on faith? Like, what the fuck? Why do all the shapeshifters just assume that everyone they're seeing is who they're fucking... What the fuck are you talking about?
Like, the other thing is that, like, don't these shapeshifters know how to recognize their own? Like, that's the main problem I also had with this.
Yeah.
That, like, they were like, it's like you said, like, they don't seem to realize who's a Skrull and who's not. And I'm like, you guys are Skrulls. How do you not see each other?
How do you not know who is or who isn't a Skrull?
This sounds like really bad planning on their part. They were like, "Oh, just go do whatever, become whoever you want to be. We aren't gonna keep track."
That's fucking stupid.
But yet they are keeping track in the sense of the government, because they want to make sure they have certain government members as Skrulls.
Right, they got dozens of these guys in their basement, but just...
It's chaos. It's chaos.
Unbelievable.
Anyways.
This show was bad, guys.
Don't watch it if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Save your time.
So let's pivot into an entirely different thing here.
Yes, let's do.
Let's talk about the season 4 return of Harley Quinn, episodes 1, 2, and 3, Gotham's Hottest Hotties, BATCH, and Icons Only. I love Harley Quinn so much. The show can do no wrong. I don't feel like it's at its A game right now, but I think this is a decent start to kind of reconfigure the Harley and Ivy relationship, even after the Valentine's Day special.
And it also kind of reinvents Harley in a way.
Right. It kind of soft reboots the entire show. So I think they're trying to navigate that as best as they can and try to find the most like oddly mature stance to have in their relationship and how they want to present that going forward. So I think they're just like on shaky ground trying to like reconfigure. I don't think they have it totally yet.
No, I do enjoy seeing a couple that's as solid as Harley and Ivy having a bit of struggle with their new positions and their new jobs and like trying to navigate that in a romantic relationship considering they're on opposite sides of the fence technically. And that aspect of the episodes was fun to watch cuz I like that kind of stuff.
Right.
I like relationship drama that makes sense. And this is the kind of drama that I like, where it's like, oh, something has changed in our dynamic. We need to navigate that, but we still love each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of, the show has kind of centralized Harley and Ivy in a way that like the past seasons haven't, where like their team has kind of been stripped away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, King Shark is dealing with his wife, or his platonic wife being pregnant, and Clayface,
Being a Vegas
Broadway
star.
off Broadway star or something.
It seemed like a Vegas Strip star, like
Yeah.
someone that's on the Vegas Strip having a Regency or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So it kind of forces the spotlight firmly on Harley and Ivy.
Mm-hmm.
Even as like Harley deals more with like the Bat family and Alfred.
Alfred. BITCH was actually probably the funniest episode of the 3, just because Alfred is so hilarious in that episode. And it took me probably a good third of the episode to figure out what it is he was doing. Because I was like, why is he acting? I was like, why is he being so strange? And then I remembered he had visited the penitentiary with Robin and found out that Bruce has another butler in prison and he doesn't like the guy because he's like, oh, this is the one time I have an enemy or someone to be jealous of, and it's just so he decides to rob a bank.
Yeah. Alfred very like deadpan, going like, I wish a bitch would. This is very funny. Like, it's deeply funny.
And then like finding out that he's not going to go to the same penitentiary as Bruce Wayne is hilarious too.
Right.
He's like,
right.
oh right, I did not think this through.
Right, I'm not actually rich. I just work for a rich man.
But I like their friendship, him and Harley's friendship bonding. Like I really did enjoy seeing that. It was fun.
Yep. Yeah, and there's a lot of like ancillary aspects to these episodes that I really enjoy. Like, I love Nora Freeze, like that chaotic. I don't even know how to describe Nora Freeze because she's such like a unique take on a character that typically does not exist.
Well, she's what's the actress's name? Dratch.
Right.
She's her own character, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So like, of course the person she's voice acting is going to be their own character.
Right, just like this, she's like this chaotic, hedonistic.
I love when she's like, I forget which episode it was in, but like Ivy was like, "Oh, I need you to find someone to fix the coffee machine or whatever," and then she's like, "Oh, Bane, do you know a strong man that could help me with something?" And he's like, "I'm strong," and she goes, "Go fix the coffee machine." He goes, "Curses again." It's just like, it's a little simple exchange, but it's so hilarious. Because she goes from this character who like is sitting at a desk so uninterested in what's going on around her, and then all of a sudden she's like very seductive and like,
Yes.
I'm gonna get my way so that I can do the least amount of work as possible.
Yeah. And I also like Talia al Ghul being set up as the big bad of the season. Even though Harley Quinn in general does not do big bads, it doesn't really do villains in general. In the traditional sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't set people up. It doesn't set characters up to, be knocked down in that way.
Right.
But Talia al Ghul is just such a force of nature that it's hard not to find that incredibly entertaining.
Yeah.
And also her like not understanding that Damien grew up, like
that part was hilarious. She's like, "Wait, you're not a baby?" And I'm like, "You've been gone for a handful of years, lady. Like, what do you expect?" Anyways,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a fun little easygoing show that you can like definitely like unwind to.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those shows that like at the end of the day you can be like, all right, I'm gonna lay back, relax, and watch this and enjoy myself. There's nothing too stressful about it.
Right, yeah. And I
I
like
mean the whole first episode, what's his name? Can never Grayson was like, modeling his butt. So,
right, yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't take anything too seriously.
Mhm. Yeah, no. I always describe like Harley Quinn is the DC is like Lower Decks is the Star Trek. Like
hmm
very loving deconstructions of the genre.
Yeah.
So let's stay on this track real quick. Rejigger things real quick. And move on to My Adventures with Superman.
Okay.
Season 1, episode 4. Let's go to Ivo Tower, you say. Which feels like the show is setting up a kind of dynamic that they'll explore further in when they eventually bring in Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
A billionaire who is highly suspicious of Superman to be used to his own gains.
hmm
And Ivo is it's like a very excellent primer for that. Because he's the poorest of poor man replacements for Lex Luthor.
Yes.
Um,
This episode was very chaotic.
it was very chaotic.
um
Yeah.
it was I will say it was funny to see Clark go into that event and say to Lois, "No, we're sticking to the cards. We're doing what we're supposed to do. We're not going to like sidetrack because that'll get us in trouble." And then what does he do the minute he gets in front of these people? He sidetracks and accuses them of things, and it's like, "You didn't listen to your own words."
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Clark.
But I love how aggressively Lois does not want to stick to the U cards.
No.
She just wants to do her own thing, and that's really funny.
That's a very Lois characteristic, and I appreciate that they're doing that with this characteristic of her as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I also like that she finds out on her own that Clark is Superman, and I'm interested to see their dynamic going forward for a little while because it's going to side rail them a little bit because
Right.
it's typically what happens when Superman's secret is revealed.
Right.
But I really, like I said, I really like that her investigative nature is what revealed the secret, even though he's been kind of wanting to tell her for a little while now. And she's not going to want to listen to him saying, "Oh, well, I tried to tell you a couple times." She's going to be like, "Well, you didn't tell me,"
Right.
So it'll be interesting.
Right. Yeah. I really like the fight with Amazo. The demonstration of Amazo's powers in this case, and how Superman like combats that and like works around it. Just like essentially just like wearing Amazo out. I think
He's like, "I'm not gonna fight you."
Yeah, it's smart.
Because he knows that Amazo's just gonna take in his power if he hits him. So it's like he's like, "All right, I'm not stupid. I'm gonna like do it this way." So like, yeah, wearing him down is the best way to beat this guy.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really well animated fight. Also, a fight that feels like kind of leaning into some of its anime influences.
I'm gonna go with yes. Okay.
Yes, I've watched.
I've seen a total of like maybe 2 or 3 animes in my life, so like I'm not very well versed.
I've watched very little actual anime in my life, but I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah. And I told Drew this prior to us recording. I found out this week that Jack Quaid is the voice of Superman, which I did not realize prior to this. I don't know how I didn't, because like that he has a distinct voice type that I'm like, I've seen The Boys, so I'm like, how did I not like connect that? But it's okay.
Yeah. On that note, I'm not pivoting. Let's switch over to our next show, which is Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Season 2, episodes 7 and 8, entitled "Those Old Scientists," and I didn't write the other one down.
The other one was, oh crap, something war. Hold on.
Entitled "Under the Cloak of War."
I knew war was in the title.
Yeah.
Smart. Under the Cloak of War.
Yeah, and both of these episodes came out this week. Those Old Scientists came out a few days early. And what a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Just a really good example of Strange New Worlds being a great show for very disparate reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk Those Old Scientists first.
You mean the really fun episode?
Yeah,
Like,
the
I
really
really
fun
enjoyed
crossover
myself.
episode with Lower Decks.
Let's just say I really like characters that are overly excited about something, that like something that they have a major hyperfixation passion about, and then getting to experience that thing in like real time. So like, for example, Boimler, is that his name? I don't watch Lower Deck, so
Yes.
I mess up their names. Boimler being so obsessed with this crew of the Enterprise, and then being dumped headfirst into this crew of the Enterprise, and then having Spock smile at him, and it freaks him out. And then number one, thinking that everyone in the future hates her because he just runs away or gets awkward around her, and then finds out, oh no, she's famous. She's a poster pinup. Like, she's famous.
Yeah, literally the poster girl.
She's the poster girl of Starfleet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I enjoyed myself because I like those types of characters. I love when characters get to engage with something that they've cared passionately about for a long time, and get to be like all nerdy geeky about that stuff. It's just fun. It's fun to see. It's fun to see excitement.
Yeah, no. Jack Quaid brings Boimler to life really well. Like, inhabits him and copies the physicality of the motion in the animation, like the way he walks, which is just such a almost an essential part of Boimler, like just walking down the hallway. Like, it's just perfect. And also Tawny Newsome as Mariner, who I just fucking love as distilled, controlled chaos.
Oh my god, her girl crush on Uhura is amazing.
So
I love
funny.
it. Like,
yeah.
I love it so much. And she's like, wait, Uhura's like, she's so shocked to find out that Uhura's like obsessed with work and not having a good time at the same time. And so like, the fact that she helps facilitate that slight change in Uhura's character is like really fun to see. It's one of those don't mess with time, but actually this time it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
she's the reason that maybe Uhura became who she's known for in the future. But yeah, this episode made me encouraged to go watch Lower Decks because I've never seen Lower Decks. And so I'm like, I'm interested. I want to know these characters a little more.
Yeah. No, I love Lower Decks so much. And Mariner's queer, so she very possibly has a legitimate crush on Uhura.
Oh, probably.
Like a very legitimate crush on Uhura. But Tawny Newsome is just so good. Saying that how hot young Spock is, or because there's a time travel episode. There's a time travel episode of DS9 where Jadzia Dax sees Kirk and Spock, and it's like, wow, isn't he hot? And they're like, you mean Kirk? It's like, no, Spock, he's so fucking hot.
But the fact that she's talking incessantly about how hot Spock is, and he's literally across the room from her, I'm just like, this is hilarious.
Yeah. Got my wish of Mariner and Ortegas having a scene together, which is just as good as I could hope for.
Yes.
But Ortegas and Sheppel antagonizing Boimler.
That was Honestly, listen, Chapel and Ortegas are two of my favorites. And so to see them antagonize a character that I could potentially see being similar to my own personality, I'm just like, give me more of this.
Yes.
I enjoy this. This is fun. And it's just the fact that these two characters that are very, we know they have a, what's the word I'm looking for? They have a um, sly streak, so to speak. They, they
Yeah.
are very, they're very professional and they're very serious about their positions in Starfleet. But then you get them in the right mood and they're like, oh, I'm going to pull pranks. I'm going to do this.
Right. Yeah.
And it's fun to see them team up together to do it. On this unsuspecting kid that just wants to try and not fuck up the fuck up the future by touching anything. And they were like, oh, you messed up everything because you got on that computer. Oh, and Chapel, talking about different like illness he could have because he time traveled.
I love Chapel so much.
And I love Ortega so much. Like, I watched the episode 8 with my roommate sitting in the room, and she doesn't really watch a lot of Star Trek. And I said to her, I was like, I have a thing for Ortegas, and I point out Ortegas, and she just looks at me and goes, "Yeah, that tracks."
Yeah, that tracks.
And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But yes, in case anybody wants to know what my type is, Ortegas.
Yep.
Or Vico Ortiz, if you know who that actress or actor is, acting person is. Very much looks like they could probably kill you, but actually is very sweet little bubbly nothing.
Yeah. But yeah, God, just what a fun episode. Just a crossover episode that has no right being as good as it is.
Mm-hmm. Also, I also want to talk about Boimler and Spock working together to figure out a way to get him back into his own time. That scene where Spock gets it out of him what it is that he said to Chapel to make her be a little antsy around Spock it's very interesting because Spock is leaning more into his human side with each episode, and I like that, but it's also makes me sad to hear that by the future he doesn't do much with his human side. And I mean, having seen some of the original, or seen the original series, I kind of already knew that, but at the same time I'm like, I like to believe that this version of Spock is the version of Spock that exists forever.
Right.
But it's kind of sad for those Chapel Spock shippers because you're like, oh, you can see them like starting to think that they need to pull away from each other when no, you don't do it.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and this episode is in such stark contrast to then episode 8. It's just woof.
yeah,
It really brings to mind like some of the darker episodes of like DS9 that like really dwelled and meditated on like how much war sucks and like the effect that it has on you. Really reminded me of one of the season 1 episodes where Kira has to talk to a old Cardassian general. And this very much reminded me of that, and just the kind of dark complexity that is in there. And yeah, like it's definitely it's the darkest episode. It's one of the darkest episodes that like modern Trek has done so far.
And it really dives into the complexity of the Federation's relationship with Klingons. Because, again, watching this around my roommate, she doesn't know anything about Star Trek in the broader sense. She's seen the movies. Okay, anyways. So, like, she knows very little about those bigger essences of the universe of Star Trek. And so she doesn't know what Klingons are. And she's like, do we trust this guy? Do we like these guys? Like, are these people, that we like? And I said, it depends on which entity of Star Trek you're watching. I think it depends on when in time we are for Star Trek, because there are people that have a very volatile nature, and so they don't necessarily lean themselves towards peaceful interactions. And you see a bit of it in The Next Generation because of why am I blanking on his name? But he's part of Starfleet, but people still don't trust him. Even members of Starfleet don't trust him. And it's like it was a devastating episode. Let's just and it was interesting to see that this Klingon, he wants peace. He wants to have a good relationship with the Federation, and he comes onto the Enterprise with good intentions. But then three people that fought against him in Jagal and survived, were like, you are a terrible person. You allowed this suffering to happen. You were part of the suffering that happened to these people that we knew and loved. And so it was very interesting to see. It was one of the first times I've seen Ortegas really stand her ground against Ike's orders and speak her mind. And it was very hard. For lack of a better word, it was very hard.
Right. I'm finding it really interesting in Strange New Worlds how it's utilizing Ortegas's more bigoted qualities, right? Because in the season 1 finale, you see her being like deeply suspicious of Romulans and therefore suspicious of Spock in that episode, where like
Right.
she's taking the place of a character that actually exists in TOS and kind of mirroring his dialogue. And you see the same thing here of her being deeply suspicious of someone who is Klingon. And it's this use of having someone who the audience deeply likes and is a favorite, and giving her things that said by someone else we would be suspicious of, right?
Yes.
That we would be that we would find dislikable. But said by Ortegas, it is by virtue likable.
Yeah, and I think also it's like you said, like if someone, even if it had been like Lon saying it, like even people would have been like, oh well, there's another reason not to like Lon, because Lon is a very divisive character. Some people like her and some people don't. So I feel like if she had said it, it would have been more of a divisive statement. Since Ortega said it, people are like, I can see Ortegas's point. It's not the greatest point of view, but like I can, they're a little more condoning of what Ortegas is saying, and
right. And I think it's a really savvy use of the writers to like weaponize Ortegas against us.
Yeah.
And our like perspective on this.
Yeah, it's gonna it forces us to really stop and think and be like, okay, wait. We need to listen to the words, not just who's saying them.
Right.
And like think, okay, is that an okay statement? Is that something that someone who is part of Starfleet and interacts with multiple species, on a weekly basis should be saying? And basically the answer is no.
Right, yeah.
The answer is always no.
Yeah. Just because of how deeply complicated and complex this entire episode is. It isn't able to like come to a conclusion on Ortegas because like she's wrong in as much as she is right.
Yep. It's one of those fine lines that it's hard to say one way or another. Okay, is this a winning statement or a losing statement? Like it's as complex as Ortegas is as a character, and that's something that Star Trek is really good at, and it's one of those things that I'm really enjoying from this show specifically.
Right. But also, like, in universe, it's a deeply stupid idea from, like, the Admiralty to have a former Klingon general in the same area as, like, war veterans, Like,
yeah,
that's a bad idea. Like, the Admiral that was in Discovery would not have made that decision.
That's like putting a Nazi in a room with, World War II soldiers. Like,
right.
You don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pike should have been a little more cognizant because he's aware of who fought in the Klingon War. He's
Right.
very aware of his people and their backgrounds. So he should have been a little more cognizant of that and been more cautious about how he approached this whole situation.
Yeah, I think he was. I mean, this is textual, but like he's hoping for a more optimistic outcome
Mm-hmm.
of like integrating this, trying to improve the opinion of Klingons among the crew and among people who have actually served in the war.
And eventually the Klingon opinion does get better because, like I said, when we get to Next Generation, we have Klingons that are in Starfleet. But it's kind of like the desegregation of our own country. Like,
Right.
they're, blacks have better rights than they did back in the day, but it's still not where it should be. And the same goes for Klingons. Even in Next Generation, like there's still a lot of bigotry against them.
Yeah, and like that is a progression of 100 years.
Yeah.
It's another 100 years till we get to that point.
Yeah.
Uh,
I also found it interesting that it felt like the writers put Joseph Mabenga into a situation where he felt compelled to give this man a chance. And I feel like that shouldn't, again, this goes back to Pike not being a little more optimistic than he should have been, where, like, instead of encouraging them to have that one-on-one time with each other, he should have been like, maybe we should shelve that for another time.
right. Yeah.
Because I feel like Mabenga, being the person that he is going to feel like he's obligated to hear a person out and be a kinder person, which that's a great attribute for this character to have. But again, he suffered so much from the Klingon War that he shouldn't have been forced into that situation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And Mega is just such a great character throughout this episode. There's such duality to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as someone who served, as someone who killed, and also as someone who healed, and someone who continues to want to heal and find new ways to heal. And like Babs, who plays him, is just so good. Like, it's just a knockout performance. Like one of the best on this show and in Star Trek in general. And this maybe sets the stage for like Mbenga not being on the ship anymore because Bones has to come in at some point. Because this is what, 5 years prior, 10 years prior.
You're asking me the wrong question.
No.
I'm not 100% sure.
It's at least 5 years prior.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, there's got to be those switching of the guards. So this maybe is the inciting incident of that, or who knows?
Yeah. But yeah, it was a very necessary episode because it did give us more backstory on the bond between Chapel and Mavinga, but it was also a very difficult episode. And it's one of those times where you really marvel at the ability of Star Trek to look at deeper issues in a entertainment sort of way.
Right.
And I really like when Star Trek does that. So I don't hate this episode. I actually really like this episode.
Yeah.
It was emotionally heavy though.
Yeah. Yeah. And it forces us to look at the Klingon War in a way that like Discovery did, because Discovery this is the thing that happens, but we're not zeroing it in on it at all. Like they don't focus on the actual war. Season 1 of Discovery, it's less of a thing. It's more of a, as I said, like an inciting incident for Discovery than anything else. It is something that we need for plot to happen, but it never wanted to like look at it or put it under a microscope and say like, oh, here's what's happening here. So like we finally get that here, and yeah, it's as messy and ugly as you expect war to be ever.
Yeah. I mean, there, you see that one young fighter in the one scene, talking to them, and then the next scene you see all the dead bodies and he's one of the dead bodies, and you're just like, oh, he was just a kid, like it's those type of war is not kind. And so Star Trek makes sure that we don't forget that,
Yeah.
that it should be a last resort sort of tactic for reaching the ends that you want.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So let's move on to our next episode, which is We Do in the Shadows, Season 5, Episode 4, entitled The Campaign. And I think this is maybe my least favorite episode of the season so far. Like, it's just kind of a bland episode aside from like the actual Colin Robinson stuff of doing the campaign and
But here's the thing, even Colin Robinson stuff was not, and I like Colin Robinson, but that's the problem that persists when he becomes a focal point of an episode, is that he doesn't have much depth to his character, so his
right.
storylines are very blah, and you're just like, okay, this took way too long to get to the end point. They had a few silly moments, but like honestly, I forget most of this episode.
Right. Yeah, like it's fun to bring in like this council of energy vampires, but it's also weird when this is coming off of the season where Colin Robinson is going through like his weird energy vampire phase, of like rebirth of an energy vampire. It's like, shouldn't those guys have been involved in this part? Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it.
And I love that he's campaigning to be a comptroller. And I'm like, oh, of course you are.
It's
That is the
just-
most boring thing that you could potentially be campaigning for. And that's what you're campaigning for.
Yeah. Like for Colin Robinson, like the peak, like the most it can hope for is the season 2 episode where he becomes like the apex energy vampire.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Which is like that's the peak of the mountaintop.
Doesn't go anywhere from there.
Yeah.
Except down.
Yeah. Like Energy Vampire Council is so good in their absurd awfulness. Like you're just like, oh, God, I want to die.
But that's the point.
That's
They're
the
supposed
point
to
of
make
Energy
you want to
Vampire.
die.
Yeah.
Kind of funny that his ex like basically used him to get what she wanted, and I'm like, this is funny. This is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But like he doesn't even really want this position, and then by the time he actually wants it, she's like, "Oh, I'm actually using you to get what I want, which is this position."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Why are we fighting over a comptroller position?"
Yeah. Do love the line of like their neighbor couldn't become the comptroller because he already had like 8 or 9 DUIs.
DUIs.
And ideally, you only want like 1 or 2.
And in the background, he is drunk off his ass.
Yeah, but like the rest of the episode of like Nandor trying to make a friend at the gym, or
that was disturbing. Nandor trying to make a friend at the gym was disturbing.
Yeah, or Laszlo trying to like ingratiate himself with Nadja's family or whatever we want to call that. Like it's all just kind of forgettable.
Her people.
Yeah, it's all just kind of
her
forgettable.
New people. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, this is fine.
And then you've got random moments of Guillermo just being like, "Oh, you're trying to make a new friend because I'm not exciting enough for you." And I'm like, "Well, bro, you're ignoring him. Like, what do you expect?"
Yeah.
You're avoiding him because you don't want to tell him that you're a partial vampire.
Yeah, so like it's a very wheel spinny episode.
I kind of feel like we're starting to get into the point of last season where I stopped watching last season because I was just like, there's no point to this episode. Like, just it's very fillery and it's got its moments, but like overall, I'm just like I didn't fully enjoy myself. Unlike the last 3 episodes where I was like, these were actually really entertaining. These were funny, And I was like, maybe they're doing better this season. And then we hit this episode, and I'm like, I really hope it's not more of this. Like,
right.
So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. So let's move on to our next episode, which is Nancy Drew, season 4, episode 9, entitled "The Memory of the Stolen Soul." I did not like this episode, like at all.
Can I just say that the end of the episode, I screamed. Well, I have mixed feelings about the episode. Like, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either. But the end of the episode where it's revealed that Tristan is the Sin Eater, I'm just like, I screamed because I was like, oh my God, like, what? Then as I thought about it and sat on it for a minute, I was like, that makes sense. They're like trying to make relationships for Nancy and Ace that are not with each other. And of course, Nancy's option is going to be this like thing that they're trying to destroy. And it seems like Ace's option is a dead body.
Right.
That like made little sense to me, but I don't know.
Right. Well, like this episode felt like it's doing a lot of things that it just has to do for plot, but I don't actually care about. So like, or like I don't think executed well. Like,
right.
Everything with Bess in the courtroom is stupid.
Has been stupid.
It's
this
stupid.
Whole time.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's been pushed way too far. I think, like, initially I was like, oh, that's interesting. They have a group of people that are opposing what she does. But at the same time, I'm like, this type of person has had a position in this town for hundreds of years. Like, why all of a sudden is it a problem? Like,
right.
And so, like, it's turned into this circus that I'm just like, this is unnecessary.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, the court ruling makes no sense within the confines of this episode. It doesn't make any sense why they would just accept that ruling. There's no, like, no one's like, how did you come to that conclusion? None of that. It doesn't make sense. It's
like the writers
stupid.
were, I kind of feel like the writers were trying to make a statement about how society is right now in general with regards to our not so nice pasts,
Right.
and how it's better to just shove it under the rug and ignore it. And I'm like, that's not necessarily the story you want to be projecting with this show.
No.
You could have gone so many better ways with this. Like I kind of expected, to be honest, after she did the magic trick and revealed the real mural, that the judge would be like, we need to discuss this a little further before I make a decision. And instead, the judge turns around and is like, I'm going to agree with the blonde white woman.
Right. Well, and makes an indictment not based on any of the magic or the mural or anything of that, but makes a direct indictment against Bess. And
yeah,
there's no evidence to support that. There's nothing to support that. And no one seems bothered by that.
Yeah, it was very... And then again, like you said, when the sentencing was given, I kind of expected them to continue fighting because like they'd been gearing up for a fight this whole time. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're like, nah, we'll just hand over the keys. No big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what? Like, I was so confused. And
but,
I
like,
was
no appeal?
Confused. Right. And I was also especially confused that George literally just took it laying down. And I'm like, George is the most obnoxious about fighting this. Like, not in a bad way. I love George. She's amazing.
Yeah.
But, like, you know what I mean? Like, she's been the most heated about it. Mm-hmm. And at the same, she's just like, yeah, sure, okay. We'll just take it.
Sure, okay. Yeah.
This is so anti-character for both Bess, or no, all three of them, Bess, George, and why can I not think of Nancy's dad's name?
Carson.
Carson. Like, even Carson gears up for fights all the time, and I'm like, I don't understand this characterization turn we've taken with this.
No, and like also during that magic trick where she's on the stand and like they give the actor Madison Giussani the monologue. She's not that strong of an actor, or she isn't that kind of actor, you know? So like I don't think that she handles that monologue very well. You know? Right. Like she feels very like listless during that whole thing. Like you needed like a stronger actor to give that. Like I could have bought that if it was like Ryan, you know? But it doesn't make sense coming from Bess. Like Bess wants to be that person, but she is not that person. Like, yeah, and that actress isn't that person.
Yeah.
But I'm even more convinced now, and there's no other way to interpret this, that the actor for Ace was straight up not available.
Yeah.
He was just not there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's in his own segregated part of the show for the entire episode. Like, he must have had a uniquely different schedule than everyone else, and they just
the only time he is part of someone else's story is when George comes over and breaks the mug to create a sin. Like, and that's like a 2-second scene. Like,
right. So I think that they just had Alex Saxon on his own little set, like after they had done filming this, just doing his thing, and then they brought in they just brought in Leah Lewis after for half a day.
like,
That's
hey, Leah,
it.
we need you for this.
Yeah, like it's the most it's absurd.
It's interesting when that starts to happen on a show, and it's very obvious that that's what's happening on the show.
Yeah,
especially because Ace is such a central character, and I think that's part of why I was just like confused and unsure about how I feel about this episode, because I'm like, I really like George, I really like Ace, I like when they have scenes together because they bounce off each other really well. And we've gotten none of that this episode. And I'm like, oh, that would have been a little interesting to have Ace a bit more integral to the case with Bess, and I don't know, figuring out who this sin eater or what this sin eater is or how to find this sin eater. Like, he's just not there, and I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense because he is their computer guy. I'm confused.
right. Well, and they're giving him a subplot that arguably you don't need.
Right.
You could get to these. You could get to the place that Ace gets to at the end of the episode without that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
I find the writing of this episode very strange. Like, the beginning of the episode with Nancy and Nick, just like doing a weird exposition dump at the beginning, like just like catching us up on like where everybody is. It's like, but I don't need. What are you doing? You're not the show.
This isn't the kind of show that you are.
Yeah, like your writing is usually smarter and like slicker than this. Yeah. And also, like, I don't think I've said this before, but like, I don't like the glasses as a villain, which is like what it feels like we're building to with like 4 episodes left, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, we don't see those people ever, and we just hear about things they do. I don't know those people, you know?
I don't care. Like, would have been more, here's the thing. Ryan could have had his whole own subplot with the glasses the entire season, and we might have cared a little bit more, because it'd be like, oh, Ryan's involved in their shenanigans. Okay, that makes sense. And they started off doing it that way, and then they kind of teetered off and excluded Ryan from it. And we're just like hearing about these things. And we occasionally see them, like in the scene where Nancy and Ryan are returning the stomach pump, and they're like, they look at them all menacingly, and I'm like, we're not in a superhero show. Like, you're not a supervillain. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, like, you all aren't those people. You're just like
rich, annoying people that take artifacts.
Yeah. Yeah, so like, if I'm supposed to be like scared of you as like an antagonistic, I'm just not. Like, I don't care about you. You haven't been built up enough.
Yep.
Yeah, and then like the end of the episode with their son being the Sydney, they're like, I don't care.
I was more shocked because they were like, oh, it's a person, and I'm like, oh, I expected them to go with just a rando. I really did, because like that's this season has felt like, where they're just going to throw a random person in our face and be like, this is the sin eater. Like, or I expected it to maybe be the blonde woman. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it could have been like any whatever.
Right.
It wouldn't have made sense for the blonde woman, but like, I still could see that happening because this season has kind of been hit or miss. And for it to be Tristan, I was just like, oh, okay, we're making this guy an actual like really bad guy. Like, I was getting like iffy vibes from him from the beginning, because he just suddenly showed up and was everywhere. But now I'm like, I don't know, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, fancy, just kill him. Who cares? Like, just kill him. You don't actually like this guy. Like, I don't, like, you don't actually like this guy.
Yeah.
You're just trying to convince yourself you do because of that whole which, again, have we just forgotten about the curse? Like, is that something that we've just forgotten to, like, explore as we go along?
I guess.
Curse just disappeared. Like, watch it happen in that last episode. They'd be like, oh, the curse disappeared, or this is how we got rid of it, and not actually show us.
Right, yeah.
Because that's how this season has felt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is just, it's a very
weird final season.
Yeah, it's a weird way to, like, prime us for, like, the end of these last few episodes. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's Nancy Drew is typically better than this, so it's a very baffling episode.
Did the writers do the whole throw a dart at the wall trick? Is that where we're at?
I guess, yeah.
Anyways.
Let's move on to our last episode of the week, which is Justified City Primeval, Season 1, Episode 3, entitled Backstabbers.
Can I say something that has nothing to do with this episode, but it has to do with Justified?
Okay.
Okay, so I just realized, again, this is me, like, actually looking up who plays who and all that kind of stuff. So I realized that one of his, I guess they're deputies, I don't know, one of the guys that helps him out with interrogations and stuff and is around occasionally, I don't know the character's name, but I realized he's played by Norbert Leo Butz, and I know Norbert Leo Butz as the original Bach in Wicked. So I'm like, this is, like, totally opposite ends of spectrum for this actor. So I was like, that's an interesting thing to learn about this show.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, we can actually talk about the episode.
Okay.
I was just like, I have to mention this to somebody because I think it's hilarious.
Yeah. There was one line from this episode that really stuck out to me of when Raylan is talking to the lawyer, and she's like, "You're angry. I get that. I'd be angry, but not everyone gets to do what you do." And that was something that was addressed a few times in Justified as well. Justified original, where it's episodes where Raylan would be working with the only black female marshal officer, and would basically say the same thing to him of like, you get to shoot people, it's fine. I shoot people, we have a problem.
Yep.
So like this feels like a very natural extension of that line of going like, yeah, you're angry. Arguably, you get to be angry, but you don't get to be this angry because no one gets to be this angry.
Yeah.
You know?
I also really liked it because I'm like, really, in a subtle way, really calls attention to, okay, a lot of black women are personified as angry black women.
Right.
And so she's saying, the minute I start to get angry, everyone's like, oh, well, of course, typical. And I can't, I'm not allowed to do that, especially as someone of the law.
Right.
And so that was a very interesting statement that stuck out in my head as well. That was something that really stuck out about this episode, was that whole conversation. And it kind of, I still am not sold on this show, which is fine, each their own. But it was one of those moments where I was just like, I can see why people like this show. I can see the merit of this show. It's not full on propaganda. It toes that line really well, and it isn't afraid to have these characters of color say things like this and to point out his whiteness to him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Again, just something that Justified did all the time. Not even just like his whiteness, but like, I mean, that is an integral part of it. But like the extent that like Raylan can shoot people and be completely justified for it, but other people are not allowed to do that. And Raylan inhabits some very weird form of privilege. So like even like other, even like a lot of other white people don't even have
Yeah, like he can do pretty much anything and not get in trouble. Like
Yeah.
I think the court case at the very beginning of this show was like a first time for him where he had a whole court case thrown out because of his actions.
Mhm.
He was kind of, you could tell in his face that like he was not used to that happening. He was just like, "Wait, what?" And that continues with moments like this where, you know, he's told, "Okay, well, you do this," and everyone's just like, "Oh, he's just a good old boy, whatever." You
Right.
know, but we do it and it's like lots of paperwork, lots of admonishment, possibly jail time. Like,
Mhm.
you know, there's a lot of consequences that come down the line for that.
Right. Yeah. 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 I do feel like a lot of the merit, for lack of a better term, for this show is just watching Timothy Olyphant do Raylan Givens again. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like that's 90% of what this is. Because like City Primeval is based on another one of Elmore Leonard's books that did not feature Raylan Givens as a main character.
Oh, interesting.
So Raylan has like been slotted here as the protagonist, but in the original source material, it was some other dude.
That's because everybody likes Timothy Oliphant and everybody wants Timothy Oliphant. So,
Right, and Raylan Givens is a beloved character,
mm-hmm.
and Timothy Olyphant is just very good at doing the, you know, gunslinger from the South, for better.
I was gonna say he has rugged charm written all over him. Like he has rugged charm. Like that's what it is. Like you look at him and he's not smiling and you're just like, "Oh, that's someone you don't want to cross." But then he smiles at you and you're just like, "Oh, he smiled at me. Oh, hi." You know, like it's very he's disarming. That's the word I was looking for. He's very disarming. And that's why a lot of people are charmed by him.
Right.
Uh, and it's why he's able to get away with a lot of bullshit that he
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think another big part of the show is that like there's just very sharp writing. Like a lot of the dialogue
mm-hmm.
is very crisp. Like just Elmore Leonard in general is kind of known for like having really good dialogue of like really snappy liners. Justified
Mm-hmm.
had that of like the classic line of like if you see an asshole in the morning, you just saw an asshole. But if you see assholes all day, you might be the asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Or just like classic Justified line, and like you have this here as well that like White Hallbrook has and Timothy Olyphant has. So it's like, yes, this is very good. This is very good.
Mm-hmm. And I like that. Yes, he's this, like we said, he's this rugged Southern cop marshal guy. You know, like he has that toughness to him. But then, you know, there's those scenes with his daughter. And, you know, it's clear that he's very conflicted and he wants to keep doing his job the way he's supposed to be doing his job. But he also wants to be able to have that relationship with his daughter and he can't have both. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very, this episode especially, like really comes into focus that he can't have both.
Yeah, yeah. I did think it was funny the mentions of like that Raylan talked to his ex-wife, and it's like, you all can't get Natalie Z for this. You all can't get Natalie Z to come back.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of expected in that scene where his daughter's like getting ready to get on the plane, I actually kind of half expected him to turn around and be like, "Never mind, no, 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 come back."
Yeah.
But I knew in my heart that like no, Raylan Givens wasn't gonna do that, but I kind of wanted him to.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of that scene. Like you want him to turn around, you want him to tell tell his boss, "Hold on a minute, I'll be a little bit, but I'll be there." But instead he goes, "I'm on my way," and he just walks off.
Yeah.
And you're just like, damn.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I was surprised that his daughter left the show for all intents and purposes. Like that was not the way I saw that dynamic playing out. So I was surprised that like they just cut the zip cord on that one.
Maybe her availability wasn't that great. She's like, "Dad, I like you, but I'm not going to spend that much time with you."
No, we're not doing this.
Anyways.
So that's it for this week, I think. Next week we're pretty much the same.
Yep.
We're currently deciding what to do as the weeks progress, but we'll keep you all updated on what we eventually decide to do. Like I said, be sure to send us in any show recommendations that you all are doing, or anything that you, if we decide to do weekly rewatches of some shows.
Yeah.
What you think would be a good idea to cover. I have some ideas that we're gonna work through, but we will see. Until next week, Mads, where can we find you online?
You can find me at Dorothy NYC 89. And that's pretty much everywhere because I am lazy, but I also have terrible memory, so I keep my headers the same. It's probably why the IT department at my job hates me because I like to keep the same password for everything. It's hard to keep track.
Yeah, this is why my work makes me change my password every 2 months.
Oh, my work does too.
Yeah,
and I hate it.
which I don't like.
So I come up with different TV related passwords. So
yeah. So find me on Twitter at the Drew Koenig, and you can find me on TikTok at Drew_Koenig. And also my Substack, drewkoenig.substack.com, where I have a newsletter that I'm not currently doing, but I still have some stuff there. Also, if any of you all are on Serialized, which is the TV tracker app that is TV's answer to Letterboxd, find me on there also. I have like 3 friends, but I'm constantly updating it as like all the TV I'm watching throughout the week.
I have never used any of those apps for anything, and I watch a ton of TV and movies, and I'm like, why don't I use those things?
I literally have to keep these apps. Like I have 2 separate TV tracker apps, because I would just get lost. I need some kind of organization to the shit I'm watching.
Oh man.
But yeah, find me on Serialized. And you can find the podcast at Not Another TV Pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can email us at notanothertvpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, questions, listener submissions, goat picks. Like I said, any shows that you all are watching that you want us to cover presently or in the future. And also, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, the wide gamut, and also on YouTube. Be sure to leave a review and subscribe. And be sure to mention us online to whoever you want. Don't let me tell you what to do. Until next week, please do not forget, the ocean is none of your business. Thank you. Good day.